Good evening and welcome and a Merry Christmas to all our viewers. You're watching The Buck Stops Here. I'm Vishnu Shom. On the program this evening, more than 3 years after 3 innocent men were gunned down in Machil in Kashmir in an alleged fake encounter, the army orders a court-martial of 6 of its own, including the commanding officer of the rank of colonel and a major. Will there finally be justice for the families of Shehzad Khan, Riaz Ahmed Lone and Mohammad Shafi Lone? Will the army's willingness to take action and possibly admit fault change the equation between the army and civilians in Kashmir? It's an equation which was shattered in the summer of 2010 when protests across the valley followed Machil and resulted in the deaths of more than 100 civilians. Also coming up, come Saturday, and Arvind Kejriwal will be sworn in as Delhi's new chief minister after the Congress extends outside support to the Aam Aadmi Party. But what about the rumblings both within the Congress and the Aam Aadmi Party? Is this government, once it is formed, destined to collapse in weeks, if not months? But first, let's quickly move on to our top story, the Machil fake encounter and the willingness of the army now to court-martial 6 soldiers, including 2 officers, including the commanding officer, an officer of the rank of colonel. Will this truly mark the beginning of an altered equation between the army and civilians in Kashmir, who've made it clear human rights abuses by the army will not be tolerated, come what may?
Almost 4 years later, the fight for justice for these villagers is finally making some headway. In April 2010, 3 young men of this Nadihal Baramulla village were taken by the army and killed in a fake encounter. Poor laborers were branded Pakistani militants. Since then, the families of Shehzad Ahmed Khan, Riaz Ahmed Lone and Mohammad Shafi Lone have been fighting for justice, demanding punishment to the accused army men. After years of legal wrangling, the army has finally decided to initiate court-martial proceedings against its 6 men, including a colonel and a major.
The 3 victims were laborers and were looking for a job when an army informer contacted them and promised them jobs in the army. On the 28th of April 2010, they were taken from their home in army trucks to the line of control in the Machil sector. On the 30th of April, the army claimed that they had foiled an infiltration bid and killed 3 Pakistani militants. The army even claimed the recovery of 3 AK rifles and ammunition from the site of this so-called encounter. The encounter set off a season of protest in the valley. It's believed to be the main reason behind the 2010 civilian unrest, in which over 100 people were killed in Kashmir. The army's decision to initiate court-martial proceedings against its men and officers is unprecedented. In most such cases, the army has blocked such prosecution against its men. In the Patribal fake encounter case, where a CBI inquiry indicted army officers for killing 5 innocent men, the army did not allow the accused to stand trial.
Nearly 4 years after 3 young men from this village were lured with a false promise of job by the army and killed in a fake encounter near line of control, there's both hope and cynicism in the village, as the army has ordered general court-martial against its men involved in Machil fake encounter. Is this a one-off case, or army wants to set a new precedent? In Nadihal Baramulla, Nazir Masoodi for NDTV.
Well, will things fundamentally change between the army and civilians in Kashmir? Joining us now, Mehboob Beg, Lok Sabha MP of the National Conference. Lieutenant General B.S. Jaswal, retired, the former Northern Army commander. Very important to have him on the program this evening because he was the Northern Army commander when the Machil encounter actually took place. Dilip Padgaonkar, editor and member of the Jammu and Kashmir Interlocutors panel, which has come out with that report. Thank you all very much for being with us. General Jaswal, let me come to you first, sir. When you were Northern Army commander, you had said that the army intends to take prompt action And to that end, there were suspensions and things which took place. And now there will be a court-martial proceeding against these officers. After all these years, sir, can you share with us your personal view? Did you believe from the onset, sir, that these men were guilty of a fake encounter?
The mere fact that we held a court inquiry and there were certain issues which did come up, and that is the reason we were convinced that probably there is something astray. And we requested that let the army take over the case, and we will order a summary of evidence and thereafter proceed with the court-martial. I was convinced that time that there is something amiss, and there were a lot of gaps in the evidence which was coming, and that's the reason the court inquiry had been ordered. Now, unfortunately, the civilian government, the judiciary, I mean, they did not want to hand over the case to the army, and that's how it was only in July 2012, I had retired in December 2010, that the High Court Srinagar, they gave permission for the army to proceed. So
Yes.
right from the beginning, I was convinced that probably there's something amiss.
No, but sir, let me ask you another direct question. Did you feel that these men were murdered by officers and men of the Indian Army? So you're saying amiss, that could mean anything, sir.
You see, till the time what I'm trying to tell you is, till the time the entire evidence emerges, you cannot apportion blame on anyone.
So are you saying, sir,
just
that the
to
evidence
have a
that
feeling
existed,
or a gut feeling that these people were murdered.
General, the evidence that you talk about, when an encounter like this
There were a
took
lot
place,
of gaps because we were not even provided the police personnel.
Okay.
The police personnel are witnesses. The civilians, the police carried out investigation without taking the army people. And similarly, in our court of inquiry, the police personnel were not, and the civilians, they were not made available.
Okay.
So there were a lot of gaps, and you cannot apportion a blame of this nature on anyone for that matter till the time the evidence emerges.
Okay.
But I was convinced,
Yes.
there
Okay.
is something amiss, and that's why I had ordered the court inquiry.
Okay. Mirza Mehboob Beg, sir, do you see this as a huge step forward in accountability as far as the army is concerned?
Vishnu, yes, this is one of the steps. Even if it's late, but better late than never, as they say it. Because basically, what's the problem? The problem is, while army is doing a commendable job in containing militancy or insurgency, the chances are that at the end of the day, we may end up alienating the entire population. This is unfortunately what has happened in Kashmir. But as you said, even if it has happened late, if it is taken to a logical conclusion, and entire population of Kashmir sees that justice, even if delayed, is being finally delivered.
But sir,
delivered here,
Mr. Beg,
it
what
will
is
be
the
a
justice that you seek? Speaking on behalf of your party, what is the justice? Do you see this as being an out-and-out case of murder, which means there's the death penalty, or what is your interpretation of this?
No. The law should take its own course, but things should be taken to their logical conclusion. Vishnu, you just talked about, we have been having it for the last over 2 decades in Kashmir now, unfortunately. You just now talked about Pathribal incident, which happened in my constituency.
Yes.
And you know whatever happened. Supreme Court even said, and I quote, that it was a cold-blooded murder. So that is unfortunately what happens, and then political class has to take the entire blame.
And nothing has really moved as far as Pathribal is concerned. That's what you're talking about.
Absolutely, that's a problem. Yes, that's a problem.
Mr. Beg, we'll talk about Pathribal a little later, because there's lots to talk about Pathribal as well. But I want to get a reaction from Mr. Padgaonkar. Sir, one of the key aspects of the report which you co-authored was in ensuring that somehow the equation between the army or the armed forces and civilians change. You spoke, of course, about the problems with the Armed Forces Special Protection Act, but there is also the entire issue of accountability of the army. Is that likely to fundamentally change after what has happened today?
This is the most important, most significant confidence building measure that has been taken in many, many years. there have been a large number of cases of alleged human rights violations by the armed forces, by the police, and much was made by people about these violations. Very little progress was made to get justice for the victims. Now I think with this particular decision to proceed with the court martial, you will see a beginning of a positive perception of the army, a perception which really should have been possible because the army, in addition to safeguarding the borders and making sure that Jammu and Kashmir is free of militancy, was also engaged in a major initiative called the Sadbhavana. And the Sadbhavana, we noticed while we were there, had also tremendous impact. But that impact, unfortunately, was negated time and again by instances such as the one that took place in Machil, and which, as you quite rightly said at the beginning, led to the protests that followed in the summer of 2010.
Mr. Beg, let me ask you this. And you were talking about Patribal, and if you just look at the recent listing of fake encounter cases, there was Chitty Singhpura, of course, in 2000. It's still a mystery about how exactly that happened, but there is a belief that there were terrorists involved. Patribal is a fake encounter case. Barakpora reports again that it was a fake encounter case, and then Machil as well. But if there is going to be justice in this particular case, the fact is Patribal, which took place in the wake of Chitty Singhpura, there is no justice there even after all these years. It's been almost 14 years, sir. Nothing seems to have been done there.
Absolutely right, absolutely. What happens is, Vishnu, what happens is we want to, we are living in a democratic country, and there is a place, a part of a democratic country where, yes, laws like Armed Force Special Powers Act, which give immunity to the security forces against any action being taken against them. It's kind of an unbridled license. Whatever they want to do, they can go ahead. I know they have to work in very difficult situation, in very difficult times. We know that, we appreciate that. But a question is, the more restraint they undertake while containing insurgency, the better it is. Because then finally, what do we want to achieve? What we want to achieve is
but
that
Mr. Beg, you have to, and this is your party's position, walk a fine line between stressing the importance of the requirement of the army while opposing the Armed Forces Special Powers Act. But can you, sir, also reflect upon the anger that existed in the valley in 2010 after Machil took place? More than 110 people lost their lives over there. A lot of people say that that was the lowest that equations between the army and civilians in the valley has ever reached.
No, that's right, Vishnu. What happens is that we didn't see such things happening before 89. When I say that, what I mean is that unfortunately, militancy erupted in Kashmir, in entire state of Jammu and Kashmir, only after 89, and these things went on happening. These things went. This has become a vicious circle now. It's extremely difficult to say what's happening, but whatever is happening, if we are able to deliver justice without covering up, there is no problem if we say this, yes, we have made a mistake here and we will correct this mistake. Because what will happen then is that we will take people into confidence, people will have faith in the system, because the moment they start losing faith in the system, then the entire problem erupts and we land up in a bigger problem and bigger mess.
General Jaswal,
we should be extremely careful while handling.
General Jaswal, in this particular case and other cases, there was often this urge, it's been reported widely, for young officers or middle rank officers to seek glory by killing people in these fake encounters. What is the message that you believe has been sent out? Do people, senior officers or the junior most officers or soldiers in the army, now understand that when it comes to human rights, it's something that needs to come into the psyche of the army? It's not an open secret, sir. This was something that was missing in the 90s entirely.
I would like to tell you, first of all, that this glorification, self-glorification by encounters, etc., it's an odd case. aberrations are there, and I totally agree with Mehboob Saab that if aberrations are there, we are always there to correct that. The message which I would like to give is that firstly, Army is absolutely transparent despite a lot of people trying to criticize the work of the Army over there. Let me assure you with my fullest of conviction that we never sheltered anyone who did anything wrong. There are certain provisions under the AFSPA by which the sanction of the central government has to be taken. That's why the delay has taken place. In the Patri Bal case also, the Supreme Court had put a stay from 2007 to 2012. In the Machil case also, incidentally, we applied in December 2010 to the High Court to hand over to the Army, and it was only after 1.5 years in 2012 July that the permission was given. There are
so there was also a sense
delays.
that could the
It
army
should not
be
be
trusted
seen
with
by
the court
people
martial when
that-
it's an issue of faith, which is why the delay took
Oh,
place
why
at the
not?
level of the judiciary.
Oh, why not?
Ultimately, the
Why
army's
not? Let-
account was accepted, which is why this court martial
No,
is
no.
now taking place. But let's not forget about the circumstances in which the lower courts took those
let me-
judgments as well.
No. I would tell you that the investigation based on which the case was filed in the civil court was done by the police without taking the army witnesses into witnesses over there. I mean, that's not fair. You can't have one-sided story.